So in middle class churches, this is what generally happens: the cream rises to the top. You see it in adverts all the time for church interns, blah blah blah, post grad, this, that, and the other. You don't. I mean, the biblical principle: don't lay hands quickly, and all that. I'm all with it. It's in the Bible, nice one.
Yep.
But in our culture, you've got to dig in the coal to find the gold. Do you know what I'm saying? You've got to dig in the dirt. Our cream doesn't rise to the top. Our guys are converts have got no teeth, tats, and a record as long as you're around. And so guys like that when we're saved in middle class churches, and I'm speaking as one who was, right, we have to assimilate to your culture. So we assimilate to the dominant culture. So I'm a geezer. You can imagine my testimony when I was saved in an AV only, an hour-long expositional sermon church, right?
Yep.
So you can imagine what the shock was 20 years ago. I'm much more refined now, obviously. When I sort of ambled in, smoking roll-ups and swearing.
Yep.
And so guys like me, we are brilliant for testimony night for those guys. They love that. Shove you up the front, give you testimony. But they're never looking at you. They're never looking at me, wandering in, going, "This guy could be a future pastor."
Yeah.
They're looking at the kid who's been in the church a while. His family are there. He's got good credentials. I mean, it's not a wrong thing. He's been educated. Guys like me, we get bypassed. We're good for, like I say, testimony night or handing out hymn books or whatever. And so my position is we need to start have a bit of thinking. Just because a guy may be poorly educated and have a criminal record, the Lord has saved him. The Lord will gift him. And our job as pastors is to prepare and equip all of God's people for works of service. And I think we miss out on a few gold nuggets because we're not used to digging around in the dirt for leaders. And that's all I'm saying is, look, it might be rough and ready, but we can, if we take the time, actually, there's some great leaders out there. Let us down. I mean, our success rate is shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you a quid if it's over 10%.
Yeah, okay.
I might write a book on leadership saying why we suck at leadership and how you can too. I wonder how many I'd sell.
So you then talk about looking for unlikely leaders. So that's the nugget in amidst the coal, which is helpful. I guess what advice do you have to someone who, they're just dealing with that cycle of I'm pouring time into people. I finally get to that stage where I've got 50 or 60 people gathered together, and then there's a split. Something happens in the church community. That means half of us head off, or recently one of our planters, they just changed the football time. They changed the game to when they had church, and so that meant half the church went to football because that was that's a key community time for their local people. I mean so they changed the church time, they changed the venue, they made it work. But how do you deal with that constant, I guess, threat that's hanging over your church? Also, just the constant, knife edge that the church faces in these communities.
Yeah, I mean, we just had a church that's about to launch in 2 weeks' time, and a couple of weeks ago, lost about 70% of its people.
Okay.
Over a theological issue, church membership, I think it was.
Yeah.
And people just did not want to commit, and so bang, we're starting again after 2.5 years of hard work.
Yep.
And so it's just backbreaking. You just have to keep going with it. There's nothing. There's no real advice other than perseverance.
Yep.
Some people are going to work, some people aren't going to work. Here's what I've noticed, and it's counterintuitive. But when we get guys from our backgrounds, what I've noticed about particularly middle-class mentors is that they become very paternalistic. And they want to protect us, and they want to make sure that we're working with the Lord, and they want to help us. And I think I talk about in the book about over-discipling people, right? And we want to make, but in a way, we put all this scaffolding around them.
Yep.
But we never take it away, and then and so they become just completely reliant on people and not the Lord, and that's when all the scaffolding goes. They crumble. So one of the things we do is we make people dependent on Jesus quickly by giving them more responsibility, even in the very early weeks of their faith. Obviously, we're not making them elders or anything. But you know, we get, and what we find is guys who've never taken responsibility, never had a job. You know, the biggest thing they've ever done is get out of bed and go and get their gyro, right? What we're finding is some guys cannot take responsibility, and they're going to crumble anyway. So we shore them up and help them. But some guys rise to the occasion, and it's those guys. They're very few, maybe 1 or 2 out of 20. They're the guys we immediately begin to hone in on and think, right, at least they've got some get up and go about them. At least they've got something about them. What we tend to find, incidentally, is by their mid-20s, guys are usually so entrenched in their sin and bad habits, it's almost impossible. Everything's possible with God. This is not a salvation thing. It's almost impossible to produce leaders from that age group because their brain chemistry has been changed by years of drug abuse. Already early signs of mental health issues are playing a factor. And so at the minute, what we're trying to do is say to ourselves, how do we get a 5-year-old in our scheme? What do we need to make happen in our church to produce a leader at 20? Are you with me? And so we're not wiping off 20 years of people right now. But in a sense, we're saying, look, we'll minister to them, but I don't think they're going to be our future leaders. We've got to think much further back. It was the same issue I had with street children. I didn't save one kid from the streets when I was in Brazil, not one. But we planted a church and opened a school and saved hundreds of kids from becoming street children. And so we're trying to have a long-term perspective on our training.